Hello, thank you for watching my channel today. My name is Sarah and my channel is called Your True Shelf. Today I'm doing a little bit of a mishmash of a haul video plus what I'm reading at the moment, and I think I'm going to start with the haul. But I just want to tell you, like, last night my husband and I hardly ever go out on our own together because we've got little kids and we need to arrange a babysitter and all of that kind of thing. And last night we went out to see Peaky Blinders at the theatre, which we treated ourselves to as a Christmas present, and it was amazing. So I just wanted to say, if you have a chance to go and see it. So if you're not in the UK, Peaky Blinders is a really successful UK television series. It's just had the last series air on television this year, and it's amazing and highly acclaimed, and it's now so I thought it was like I wasn't really sure too much what it was. I wasn't sure if it was a play or a musical, but actually what it is, there's a few bits of dialogue which play over the speakers using the voices of the characters, but actually the whole thing is told through dance, and it's Tommy's story. He's the main character in the TV show, and it was incredible. And one of the things that I thought was the most amazing thing was one of the dancers, who is called Musa Motha. He is an amputee, so he's an above knee amputee. He lost his leg when he was, I think, 10 from osteosarcoma. And he is the most incredible dancer. And I'll put a picture of him, or put some pictures of him on the screen, because he was just so inspiring. And I loved that he was performing all the same dance routines despite the fact that he had one leg instead of two. It was amazing. And the whole cast were wonderful. Like, the dancing was incredible. There was a live band on the stage who at times interacted with the cast, and they were wonderful as well. And they used the soundtrack from the show as well. So like the title song and all of that kind of thing was in there. It was just brilliant. So I just want to say, if you have the chance to go and see that, then you really should. So that was really fun. Actually, I've changed my mind. I'm going to talk about what I'm currently reading, seeing as I'm talking about what I'm currently doing. Currently reading. So I'm reading three things at the moment. So one of them is Nickelby, because which is by Charles Dickens, because that's this month's January and February's scheduled book for the mega Dickens Readalong, which is hosted by Katie at Books and Things, where we're reading all the Dickens books in publication order. So I started Nickelby on audio, and I am about 2 and a little bit hours in, and it's like 34 hours. So I'm only just early days. But so far so good. So far I'm enjoying that. I am reading on my Kindle, because for my my reading resolutions was to read 12 books off my Kindle as a minimum this year. I'm reading a book called 1500 Miles from the Sun, and I really can't remember the author's name just because it's on my Kindle. I don't see it every time I pick the book up, so I'll insert a picture. This is really, really lovely. This is a queer YA book, and it's about a guy called Julian who is Mexican American, and he is gay, and he accidentally outs himself on Twitter when he's drunk at a party, and so his friends all find out, and his friends are like super supportive, and we're like, well, we kind of knew, but we were just waiting for you to tell us. But his family, so his mum died when he was young, and he lives with his dad, and he has an older sister who lives away, and his grandpa and his dad are like not going to be at all supportive. His dad is quite physically aggressive to him as well, and when he actually asked him if he was gay, he just kind of went really nuts at Julian, and Julian was like, no, I'm not gay, I swear, because he was too scared to say that he was gay. So he's in a really difficult position where he's kind of having to pass as straight at home. And it's basically, he then meets this guy on Twitter called Matt, and Matt lives 1500 miles away, which is why that's what it's called, and they have this super close friendship developing, and Matt's gay as well, so he sort of really understands what Julian's going through. And it's there's lots of, so far I think I'm about a third of the way through. It's really comforting and cozy. I think it would be like for queer teens, I think it would be a really good, helpful book to read. And there's some really nice friendships in there. There's a really nice relationship developing, and the food as well, because there's quite a lot of Spanish mixed in with the book. So I am using Google Translate quite a bit to actually understand when there's some Spanish words, because I don't speak any Spanish. And there's loads of stuff about Mexican food, which just sounds great. And I love as well that the main character is vegetarian, which is pretty cool. So there's like mention of like jackfruit and lots of things in there as well. And I think it's a fictionalized account of the author's adolescence, because he's written like a preface at the beginning talking about that. So I'd really recommend this, and I'm really, really enjoying it. And then the last thing that I'm reading is I'm still doing the Immune Readalong, which I talked about on my previous video when I was about to start it. And I am now I'm one day behind because we went out last night. So I'm page 115, so I'm over a third of the way through. And it's a really, really good read. So, as I said before, this is like a layman's guide to the immune system. But it's really fascinating in the way it's told, because you can imagine if you were picking up a textbook, it would be really dry, quite difficult to understand, quite boring. And this is not like that at all. So it gives the different cells personalities and traits which make it easier for them to remember. And then it talks about like, and then when there's a pathogen come into our bodies, it makes it sound like an epic battle scene from a movie. And it's just really, it's written so nicely, and it's got these really helpful drawings as well. Like these are interspersed every few pages. There's little summaries every few pages. And so I'm finding this really informative. You might think, well, you're a doctor, shouldn't you know this stuff already? Well, immunology lectures were a really long time ago. And immunology is something where, yes, we have the different cell groups and stuff on blood tests that we do, but immunology doesn't make up a part of my everyday life in terms of my clinical consultations. And so this is really interesting for me, and so far we're just covering infection, but I think it will be really interesting as well when we go on to more like autoimmune conditions and things, because autoimmune conditions are like really common. So yeah, so I'm really enjoying this, but that's why I'm reading a very different mix of books, because, you know, I've obviously got a non-fiction, a Victorian book, and a YA contemporary, just so that I'm doing completely different things. So I'll tell you about the books that I've hauled. So plans for hauling are small this year, but as I said in the previous video, I was kind of given a £50 voucher from work, which I took great pleasure in spending. And I also got 3 books in a sale through Audible, and Kindle. So I will start there. So the first book I've been meaning to read for absolutely ages, and then it was I think it was in the 99p Kindle sale or deal of the day, and it is The Sun Does Shine by Anthony Ray Hinton. So this is a memoir which I've wanted to read for such a long time. So Anthony Ray Hinton in 1985 was wrongly convicted for a crime. He is a black man in America, and he was arrested and tried for this crime, and he was sure that the justice system had realised that he didn't commit this crime and that it was a mistaken identity, but he went to prison and he went to death row, and he was on death row until 2015 when Brian Stevenson, who is in the book, wrote the book and the film Just Mercy, he managed to get him out, got his conviction overturned, and he was free. So from 30 odd years he was in prison for on death row. And it talks about how, to start off with, he was really angry, and as you would be, and then he came to find peace and happiness in his inside, even though I think it said 54 of his friends over the time he was there got killed on death row. I mean, imagine that in itself is like horrific, isn't it? So that one I'm really, really looking forward to reading. Then I got, there was a 2-for-1 sale on Audible, and I have quite a few credits on Audible at the moment because I've just been kind of mainly listening to Dickens. And so I decided to use one of the credits and get 2 audiobooks. So the first one is another one that I've wanted to read for a long time, and it's Caste by Isabel Wilkerson. So I haven't read The Warmth of Other Suns by her, but I know that's like highly acclaimed. So when I saw this one, I thought that would be good. This is about like around different countries of the world, but I think mainly looking at their systems, but also sort of focused in America. And it's about this sort of unwritten caste system in the States. And it describes it on the cover as, imagine if you had an usher who was at a theatre who was making sure that everybody sat in the right seats. That is what the system is doing with caste, making sure everyone's kept in their place. And it's not just based on things like race and poverty and things. It's based on apparently 8 different things. And it looks also at how they use these systems in Nazi Germany. And I thought it just sounds really fascinating. And it's got a very high score on ratings on Goodreads as well. So that was a great time to buy that one. And then the other one is The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches by Sangu Mandanna, who apparently lives in Norwich, which is pretty cool. And so this is a sort of, I think, cozy fantasy book about a main character who is a witch, but she's not allowed to tell anybody that she's a witch. And I think she starts like a blog or a social media channel pretending to be a witch, and she thinks no one will think that she's being serious. And then she gets an invitation to go to this school to teach 3 young witches how to control their power. And then she ends up breaking rules and connecting with other witches. And I think there's like possibly a romance in there as well, which all sounds pretty cool. So I've heard that one's really good as well. So that's the sort of non-physical books I have. And then I will tell you about the books which I got with my voucher, which are in a big pile next to me. And we will have a look at those together. The way that I chose them, some of them were ones that I had heard other people talking about, and quite a few of them are off Oprah's book club because I really trust her recommendations. I've got a bullet journal spread. Actually, let me find it. So I made this ages ago. This is a spread of all of the Oprah's book club books here. Right up to the current ones, the most recent, and I kind of tick them off as I've read them. So quite a lot. So actually The Sun Does Shine is on there, and I believe, Caste by Isabel Wilkerson is also on there. So that's good. And I think several of the ones I'm about to mention are on there as well. So the first one that I have is The Water Dancer by Ta-Nehisi Coates, which I am loving the cover for this one. It's really beautiful. And I think the back blurb is really small. I think it'd be sensible to just read that out to you. So it says, Hiram Walker is a man with a secret and a war to win. A war for the right to life, to family, to freedom. Born into bondage on a Virginia plantation, he is also born gifted with a mysterious power that he won't discover until he is almost a man, when he risks everything for a chance to escape. One fateful decision will carry him away from his makeshift plantation family and into the heart of the underground war on slavery. And Oprah says it's one of the best books she's ever read in her entire life. So that is a recommendation and a half. The next book that I bought is a non-fiction memoir, which I'm really excited about, and this is Crying in Mart by Michelle Zauner, and another beautiful cover. And this is about Michelle's experience of the death of her mum, and she, I believe, is a musician, and she is Korean American, and I believe it's the way that she comes to terms with the death of her mum, but it's also interspersed with a lot of food, Korean food, and how food and family and comfort kind of come together. And so I love books with food writing in. I think this just I know it sounds really sad, but also when I listened to a sample of this, I thought that it sounded really good as well. So that's the second one. The next book is one that was shortlisted for the 2021 Booker Prize, but I never read it. I never really even thought about reading it, but this was on the Oprah list again, and I thought it sounded amazing, and I love the cover again. So this is Bewilderment by Richard Powers. So this is following a father and a son. The father is a scientist, and he's found a way to look for life on Earth, life on other planets, many light years away. And he is a single dad to a 9-year-old boy. So he's a widower, and his son loves plants, and he says he thinks deeply, adores animals, and can spend hours painting pictures. So then Robin, the little boy, has a violent outburst at school, and it puts a massive strain on the relationship between the son and the dad, and he's trying to help people understand his son. And it sounds like really beautiful and really unusual as well, so that's exciting. The next book that I got because not only have I seen this absolutely everywhere, which kind of puts me off a book sometimes, but we decided to make this our April book club choice for our workbook club. And this is Lessons in Chemistry by Bonnie Garmus. And I think that probably most people watching this will have already read this book. I actually didn't really know what it was about. And so I am just going to say this is following a woman called Elizabeth Zott. And it's set in the early 1960s in America. She is a chemist and she is subject to a lot of sexism at work. Men don't believe that she can be equal to them in science. And she meets one man who I think falls in love with her mind. And then it says she finds herself in years to come as a single mum and the reluctant star of a cooking show where she combines her chemical knowledge with cooking and tries to change the status quo for women. So one thing I did notice as well is that this has really lovely cover under the dust jacket. So it's got the periodic table elements underneath, which I really love. It's definitely got a really eye-catching cover, and so I knew, even though I didn't really know what it was about, I've seen it everywhere, this book. And I've seen it on quite a few people's best of the year books as well. And she's actually coming to Norwich for the Norwich Science Festival in February. So I'm going to try and see her there as well, which is cool. The next book is another one which was longlisted for the Booker Prize in 2021. And this is The Sweetness of Water by Nathan Harris, which is another Oprah's book club choice as well. And this follows two brothers by the name of Landry and Prentice. They're born into slavery and then they're freed at the end of the American Civil War. And they have no money and they're trying to find work, but when they're trying to find work, every place is really hostile towards them. And then they come across a couple called Mr. and Mrs. Walker, who they are reeling from a loss which has happened to them, and they decide that they will employ these two brothers on their land. And I think bonds start to form between them, but then an event happens in the town and the bond between them is looked upon with real suspicion by the community. So I think this is probably going to be another emotional read, but it sounds like so gripping and interesting as well, and another beautiful cover. The next book that I've got is another Oprah on the list, and it's by an author who I've heard a lot about but I've never read. It's got a really nice cover which has been reissued, and this is a first in a quadrilogy and or quartet. Did I make up a word, quadrilogy? Quartet. And this is called Gilead by Marilyn Robinson. It doesn't really say what this is about on the back. I'm pretty sure when I researched it, I read more depth into what it's about, but I'll tell you what it says because I can't really get a clear premise to share with you just from this. In 1956, towards the end of Reverend John Ames's life, he begins a letter to his young son. I told you last night that I might be gone sometime. You reached up and put your fingers on my lips and gave me that look I never in my life saw on any other face besides your mother's. It's a kind of furious pride, very passionate and stern. I'm always a little surprised to find my eyebrows unsinged after I've suffered one of those looks. I will miss them. That's all I know. But I like the cover, and I like the fact that it's one of four. This is, she's won the Pulitzer Prize for Fiction, and Oprah says it's good, so what more do I need? And then the last one, this sounded really unusual, and it's really beautiful again, and I'm really looking forward to reading this. And this is Sharks in the Time of Saviours by Kawai Strong Washburn. This is set in Hawaii. Again, I think it might be easier if I just read out the blurb to you without trying to... I'm going to hold it down so I don't put it over my face. In 1995 in Hawaii, 7-year-old Nainoa Flores is saved from drowning by a shiver of sharks. His family, struggling to make ends meet amidst the collapse of the sugarcane industry, hails his rescue as a sign of favour from ancient Hawaiian gods. But as time passes, this hope gives way to economic realities, forcing Nainoa and his siblings to seek salvation across the continental United States, leaving behind home and family. With a profound command of language, Washburn's powerful debut novel examines what it means to be both of a place and a stranger in it. So I really like reading books set in places I've not been to and that I don't know much about in Hawaii. I don't know much about the history of Hawaii, and I'd like to learn about Hawaiian culture in this book. And I am super pleased with this whole collection. So I think like getting, apart from the first 3 books, which cost me like an Audible credit and 99p, I got all the rest of those books with my £50 voucher. So I think I did really well. I sort of had so many combinations, and I really fancied just reading some books that were a bit different to what I have, and that came highly recommended, but they weren't necessarily the ones that everyone's been talking about. And I'm really happy with the collection I've got, and I'm really looking forward to reading them. I feel like with time, my collection is becoming so much more me, and I can feel like I'm knowing my taste more. I'm getting rid of books that aren't my taste anymore, and I need to go through and do that again, because I was watching Mercedes recently, and she said, like, I think she said every 4 months she goes through and unhauls books that aren't really anymore her taste and stuff. So I probably need to do another unhaul, but I'm really like honing down what I'm into now, which is really good. So anyway, if you've read any of those books or you want to read any of them, please let me know. Let me know what you're reading at the moment. Just let me know how you are in general. And I look forward to hearing from you, and I hope you have a lovely week. Bye.